she's now going to leave. It's safe. Safe to leave. Okay, this is going to be my share today. So, um, okay, hold on. Where is everybody coming in from this time? Australia, Missouri, Palm Springs, California, BC, PA, Mississippi, Kansas, Toronto, Arizona, Colorado, Missouri, Mississippi, Montana. Wow, look at this. It's crazy. That's wild. Okay, hold on. More people to enter. It's late and my eyes are failing me at this time of the day. Okay. I'll put it like that. Just give me a couple minutes to get all this situated the way I want it. Recording, so I'm at least safe. Oh, there's my ex-wife. I announced it. That's so funny. I announced that on day one too. Okay, hold on. Admit. Okay. So, I thought on Tuesday, that was fun. I thought on Tuesday that I would go through all that information in 30 minutes. And I didn't think I wasted any time either. So um now I have a better idea. So that was like 70 minutes. I have a lot of information here too. But as much as it's a lot of information, it's all pointing to the same thing. So I like to be repetitive in certain areas because the same explanation is going to explain a number of different things, right? So I have this pop up here that I need to figure out how to get rid of. Okay. And actually today, what's today? Today's Thursday. So tomorrow is the last workout of this round of Look Like You Train. So we are 2 weeks out from the next one. Okay. No, it's not going away. Hold on. All right, that's the chat. So if any questions pop up, just like kind of the last time, add them as they come, but don't I won't be able to um, answer them right then because I'll get distracted. I'm not really liking, just give me a second, guys. I'm not really liking how this is popping up and then making me have to pull something up to see who these new people are to admit. I'd want to be able to just press admit while I'm on my screen. Okay, so where did I share? Gotta go back to my not liking. Okay, stop share. Struggling here. We're struggling here with this setup. View. That's what it is. Speaker. Okay, now I'm good. Right, you see all that? Okay. All right. I think I'm good. Okay, so we've done training on Tuesday. I'm not sure if anybody had a chance to take any of the Look Like You Train sample workouts or if everybody even got it's gonna make me do this. Darn it. Every time I'm gonna have to pause and do. Okay. Get started. Um, if you had a chance to do any of the three workouts I gave you or not, but and then yesterday Amy obviously did nutrition, which is kind of mostly our approach to packaging calories, right? And from a system of sustainability. So this one under the hood, this is the one that kind of is why everything is changed, why things that used to work, that you've had experienced success with, are not working when you repeat them or return to them. And ultimately, it's because you're just dealing with a different environment. The metabolism is in a different space. Hormones are operating different, not operating differently, but they're just the whole metabolic environment that you're exposing yourself to, or that your training is exposed to, that your eating is exposed to, is different. So the calories that you're consuming are received differently. The impact of training that training has on stress in your body is higher, so on and so forth. So ultimately, this is the case where you can be doing a lot of things right on paper in terms of the training ingredient and the nutrition ingredient, and still be kind of missing the mark and frustrated that you're not making any progress. So why fat loss feels harder after 40, 50, and 60 as well, but why it starts really after 40 and what to do about it. So the big problem is that there's hormone changes, and there's natural changes, and there's not so natural changes. The natural ones are the obvious changes that a woman's going to go through during perimenopause, approaching menopause, end of reproduction, so on and so forth. You're all going through it, right? And then there's the not so natural and not so expected ones that you accumulate from having a dieting history. And this is the one that is really uh, I would say complicates a perimenopausal journey more so, because you're already coming in with a lot of the issues. You just have more defense against them that you're going to go through perimenopause. So somebody who has a really, really kind of colorful dieting history, has done a lot of weight cycling, maybe some extreme dieting, competitors experience it a lot. They're going to have a lot of the hormonal environment that a person in their 40s is going to naturally progress through anyways. So this tends to create a body that is more resistant to fat loss. If a body is more on the defense, then it's just not going to be as cooperative. And ultimately, for fat loss to happen, which is what you want, it's really an accumulation of good things happening inside your body. So if things aren't functioning as they're designed to and biologically expected to, the outcome is not necessarily going to be as you'd expect, right? Right inputs, it's processed in this now chaotic system, and it doesn't produce the outcome. It's because the inputs have to change, because this whole processing unit has changed as well. So dieting history causes unnatural adaptations. Perimenopause brings natural hormonal shifts. Both of them, however, are at play typically at this point. So my audience, our audience is not new to fat loss, trying to lose weight, dieting, working out, fitness, right? So everyone has some degree of dieting history, which is simply to say everyone's tried to lose weight before, right? So most people can uh, can go about that in a lot of crazy ways, because the industry is full of crazy ways. And there are consequences that don't automatically show up immediately, that accumulate over time. It's like wear and tear. If you look at like diseases that show up as we get older, they didn't just happen, right? They accumulated slowly over time until they showed up symptomatically. Now you got a problem. It's the exact same thing with metabolism. It's wear and tear. So it's just a rustiness that comes with that, because it's never had enough of the opposite. So continuing, the solution is not a larger calorie deficit, although you can temporarily band-aid the problem by doing that. But it actually potentiates and deepens the problem ultimately. To the same effect, it's not more cardio either, because that is essentially trying to do the same thing as what a bigger calorie deficit would be doing. The point is, less is not the solution when you're in this place. So it's really about reducing metabolic stress and rebuilding your metabolism. I don't even like the word rebuilding. It's really reducing metabolic stress, which is going to allow the pressure off of certain systems, the pressure on certain systems to come off, and allow other systems that are now de-emphasized because your body's under too much stress to function normally. So how hormones impact fat loss. So The first thing that typically happens, this is going to happen in perimenopause, and this is going to explain a lot of things for a lot of people who don't understand this, and it'll be a review for a lot of people who already see me talk about this and Amy talk about this a lot. But whether it's perimenopause or really high stress, high chronic stress will do it regardless of perimenopause or anything. Progesterone will go down when your body's under a lot of stress. So this is P. P declines first. So when you, this is what removes, and I talked about this, I think, a little bit on Tuesday, but when progesterone and estrogen, these are like the best way I've seen it explained from another coach was non-identical twin sisters. They are related, so they have an impact on each other, but they're very different. So but when they're in balance the way they're supposed to be, they really protect you against the consequences of a lot of stress. And one of those is belly fat. This is one of the reasons why men typically have more belly fat accumulation than women until this time, because we don't have that progesterone estrogen buffer that you do. At this point in time, you start to lose it. If you have a really jacked up dieting history, you probably already have a lot of these symptoms that show up of low progesterone anyway, and a redistribution of fat, so on and so forth. So it basically just starts to remove your protection against the impact of higher stress levels in your body. So this increases stress sensitivity, admit somebody, making it easier to store fat, particularly in your abdominal area. This is the telltale sign that this is happening, right? So the key thing to recognize here, because this is all going to be, like I said, a lot of information, but it all points back to the same thing, and the solution is pretty straightforward. Um, uh, you know what's happening based on just the symptoms. And that's the key. It's symptom. So if you're in a place of fat loss, weight loss resistance, you have to be cautious of having a mindset of trying to solve that problem, because that's actually not the problem. That's a symptom of the problem we're talking about, right? That's created that problem. Just like these other symptoms that you would experience under a lot of metabolic stress or during perimenopause, and the more, symptomatic it is, it's the same idea. So cortisol impact. This is what we just mentioned with progesterone decline. You're more exposed now. So elevated cortisol from chronic stress further promotes abdominal fat storage, which is more metabolically active and promotes insulin resistance. So you have this kind of environment that's really creating a belly fat storm. You have low progesterone, you've got no defense there, you've got high cortisol. This is going to impact insulin sensitivity and resistance, dysregulates blood sugar. That affects thyroid hormone, which I probably mentioned here. It's two at some point. Everything is connected. So my last point here, hormonal orchestra. You can't talk about a hormone without thinking about all the other ones, because they're all connected. One gets pushed, the others respond accordingly. So estrogen decline, this is something that's going to happen later as you get closer to menopause, sorry. And this is going to naturally shift fat storage to more from hips, thighs, and butt to your abdomen, separate from cortisol or stress-induced body fat gain that you would notice earlier in that process. So this is the natural shift, not, like I said here, solely caused by stress hormones. So, and then the last thing again here, everything is connected. So cortisol is going to also impact thyroid hormones. So you are going to see everything kind of like malfunction to some degree. And it's like a pendulum, right? The more you're over here, the more that stress dial is turned up, the more the impact on a lot of these systems. And ultimately, not only is the volume turned up, your sensitivity to the volume is higher. So something like I said on Tuesday that might be perceived as a 4 normally years ago is received and responded to like it's a 7 or an 8, right? In terms of a stress response in your body. How stress and sympathetic overdrive affect fat loss. So nervous system balance. So again, we're all still talking about the same thing. So I like to use a seesaw analogy, because that's really what you're thinking about with the sympathetic nervous system. You'd know it as fight or flight, and the parasympathetic nervous system, rest and digest, right? The peaceful side. You may not know that, but that's what it is. So this is also why when you are unbalanced and in a overdriven state, you see one of the symptoms as digestive issues, bloating, bowel problems, things like that. It's a window. Digestion is often a window into how stressed a person's body is chronically. So think of your nervous system like a seesaw. Like I said, one side heavier on the other, one side is chronically heavier than the other. So it's like me on one side and one of my kids on the other. So this is called sympathetic dominance, and a lot of people, a lot of women, people in general, but a lot of midlife people are stuck in this area because if you think about it, you're kind of in that place where, say, you have aging parents, you still have children at home, you have a job, you have, there's just a lack of self-care and perception of time availability. So that alone, there's a lot of overwhelm. So just think of that from just like a life situational stress time, no time for you. And ultimately, the overreaching message about how to make progress now is it really is a phase of having to connect with yourself because you have to learn to, and we'll talk about this, but listen to biofeedback, actually track biofeedback. We have clients do this 100% and send this in weekly because it will give you clues and indicators as to what's happening quickly before a fat loss stall would happen. And you see these changes in all these indicators, it tells you that your body is starting to get upset. So it really is a self-care journey and you're kind of nurturing yourself into fat loss and into a place where your metabolism is strong, as opposed to when you could get away, I'm going to say get away with, because it was still never optimal. It works as well at that time. Really trying to kind of grind and pound your body and just give it everything it can handle, like young fitness. So chronic stress shifts your body into a defensive state, right? No living organism is meant to survive a emergency response in their body for a long time. Everybody's heard that we've all heard it growing up, right? Stress is the kind of like common denominator that creates all these issues with time with life and health over time. And it's nothing, 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 nothing until it's something. So this is a body on the defense. It's certainly not going to give away energy freely. It's certainly not going to want to build muscle. It's not going to want to become more metabolically active. It's going to go into a defensive state. Of course, it's going to resist weight loss, right? Your body wants to fuel up in a crisis. So it's not even in the environment where these good behaviors can function if you're coming into it in a place like this. So again, this is a lot of diet history effects, and of course, really symptomatic perimenopause or menopause as well. The rules change in menopause because it's not a chaotic hormonal situation. Um, so in this defensive state, your body's prioritizing energy storage, of course, reducing digestion, and further suppressing sex hormones because they don't matter in an emergency. Digestion doesn't matter that much, and neither does reproduction. So these hormones adapt to the process, right? Or what's happening. So you might think, I wanted to touch on cardio because it always comes up. What about cardio? What about heart health? And so I'll touch on the fat loss cardio component first and then just talk about cardio in general. But it doesn't help in this situation for the reasons the quick mention I said in the beginning, which was because more energy expenditure is not the solution when you're in a metabolically adapted or defensive state. You can do it. Like I said, eventually you can do enough cardio and you can eat so little that you are not having anything net left. That's that's a word salad, but you don't have much left from a net energy intake standpoint and you lose weight. You're still going to be totally effed up at some point on the other side of that though, obviously, right? So cortisol and exercise. So cortisol is not the public enemy number one because it is true cortisol is supposed to rise with exercise. That's not the issue. So when you see people say, oh, people are over talking about cortisol, they're just not understanding the context of the greater picture here. It's specifically for the person who's already dealing with it being chronically elevated and it affecting other systems. And the objective then of this whole process is to turn that volume down. Therefore, you're not going to choose to do things that are going to contribute to that volume. High intensity cardio, long duration cardio, boot camps, all these things are no-nos during this time block. If you're in a different, I'll get to that seasonal part, but so the context matters. Chronic stress impact for women with chronic stress, and this is essentially, when I say chronic stress, it's essentially the over 40 metabolism. It is under chronic stress, right? For the most part, there are outliers. They just don't experience symptoms. But for the most part, it's a season of symptoms. And then non-responsiveness into menopause. And that part doesn't have to be perimenopause related in what we deal with hormones. That's still the effects of the dieting history accumulating because the person's never stopped cycling through that process. So dieting history, hormonal shifts, long duration, high intensity cardio. This is going to push it too high when the entire objective is to bring things down. Everything that we choose to do, from training to how nutrition is structured to the recovery process, is meant to address the actual problem so that the symptoms, one of them is fat loss resistance, inability to gain muscle, so on and so forth, can actually happen and respond to inputs the way they're supposed to. So the issue isn't temporary cortisol spikes, like I mentioned. It's not the issue. That's fine. It's the chronic elevation that occurs when stress and recovery are already out of balance. Counterproductive effects, breaks down muscle, lowers resting metabolic rate, raises your blood sugar, and promotes insulin resistance and further contributes to belly fat. Real world example. So let's say you have someone like Sarah. No, not any Sarahs in here, of course, and just a theoretical example. She's 150 pounds, 45, and she's runs 5 days a week, eating 1,500 calories. First of all, this is too low calories, but this is at all, that is completely not unrealistic. So at first, she's going to lose weight because she's consistent, she's in a calorie deficit, but there's a point of adaptation that's coming. And when you're coming into it in this place, in this kind of metabolic hormonal environment, the adaptation is faster and cardio is accelerating it because it's pushing the deficit. So uh, the hormonal impact, cortisol remains elevated from this, reducing recovery, increasing your hunger. So now it's not so much that cortisol is saying, well, you can't lose fat. You can lose fat with high cortisol. You can lose fat with high stress. It's a lot harder to be consistent with your diet, though, when you're overwhelmed, you're stressed out, you don't make as good decisions. These are all facts of that. You have brain fog, you're tired, you're not sleeping, you got energy. It's really hard to be consistent when that's happening. So you have more cravings. So it's a behavioral component and somewhat of a physiological uphill battle. She increases cardio more, which leads to more tiredness, more hunger, faster metabolic adaptation, and ultimately more stalled fat loss, and likely a worse time trying to undo this. Because it's like kind of recognizing that you need breaks and have a service appointment, are told you need breaks, you say next time, and you go the next time, you need breaks, next time, and you crash your car. And then you tow your car and say, by the way, can I get those brakes? Well, you missed it's a bit too late for that, right? And then you're in a whole different type of recovery and solution set. So the final outcome, instead of burning fat, her body holds onto energy, defensive state, due to stress. And the longer she keeps trying, the more muscle is at risk because there has to be, if you're here metabolically and are here from a net intake standpoint, and it's just, let's say it's just too much or whatever. The point is, your body, part of the adaptation is going to be muscle loss. Muscle loss is typically lost to some degree on most people's weight loss journey. That sucks because if you think about it, then you have all these repetitious times you've tried to lose weight, probably maybe not all the time trained properly, especially after Tuesdays, right? And there's a small degree of lean body, small to large degree of lean body mass loss. It's hard to build muscle. It's a lot easier to lose fat than build muscle. And as you get older, the muscles is everything that matters, right? So you lose a little bit of muscle, you lose a little bit of muscle, you gain the weight. Like think of like people who use something like Ozempic or a GLP wrong, in the sense of They are not training. They are not consuming enough protein. They're really just, having the ability to super undereat and not care about it. Um, there's a lot of weight loss that occurs there. And in that case, there's not much to protect the muscle. So then they come off that medicine, and let's say they start to regain their weight, their appetite returns, they don't have the control, the food noise is back. The muscle's not coming back with the weight. You end up the same weight or whatever with a worse body composition. You have less muscle and more fat for the same weight. It's the worst case scenario. So that's ultimately that's obviously just a side example of the extreme case of what I'm talking about here. So metabolic adaptation, this is what's happening and why your body starts to resist fat loss. Years of under eating and the diet cycle, this is slowly going to erode at your metabolic requirements and thus your calorie requirements. Is that someone getting in? I don't know. I hope, yeah, it is. And thus your calorie requirements, meaning that you're going to have to go lower and lower in calories to lose fat, and find that lower calories are maintaining you more so than more so than they would have. You could eat more basically previously and be successful. So the fancy term for this from a diet adaptation standpoint is adaptive thermogenesis. What it basically means is your body just adapts to the demands imposed on it or the energy available to you. So if when you this is why calorie deficits stop being calorie deficits and you plateau while after you've been successful, because there's a component of calories that is related to your body weight, your total body weight. So if you lose 20 pounds, well, obviously, to maintain that, you'd have to eat for a person 20 pounds less, right? That's probably 300 calories less to maintain a 20-pound weight loss difference from maintenance, right? So if maintenance is approximately 15 times body weight, that's going to be a 20-pound difference. That's 300 calories. So that adaptation is to be expected and cannot be undone. You should just expect it with weight loss. And then you have the adaptive component that follows food down and follows food up. Meaning that if you're chronically eating lower calories, this is going to gradually reduce to try to make that more like maintenance. Of course, your body wants to work on maintenance. It's going to slow down processes so this doesn't feel like not enough. This is where the de-emphasis of certain systems in your body starts to happen slowly, right? So you can have adaptation. This can slide all the way over to a more extreme case where it's just full-blown dysfunction, right? And it's just like a bigger car accident. This is what makes it harder to maintain a deficit. This is where diet breaks come in, reverse diets, metabolic improvement phases, eating at maintenance, where the magic is. This is what undoes this part of the adaptive component of having now needing to eat lower calories. So repeated dieting, I mentioned this, leads to muscle loss, which obviously further lowers your metabolism. And the defensive state I talked about, over time, your body shifts into a defensive state, prioritizing energy storage and resisting fat loss to protect against perceived scarcity. That's all it is. We see it as fat loss. Our bodies see it as not enough, right? And since your body is always trying to maintain status quo, maintain equilibrium, we are the ultimate adaptogens in that context. It's that adaptive component to the calorie deficit is normal, which is also why I always say this too. You should be serious before you even try to lose fat, because the worst thing that can happen is making it last too long because you're not consistent, you don't have accountability, you're not sure what you're doing. Because if you're mostly in a calorie deficit and then you're inconsistent and you cheat a lot, you get into a place that we call accidental maintenance. This is where you get all the consequences of dieting with none of the benefits, right? And then when you get your ass in gear and get consistent and start doing it right, you got to deal with the consequences of the time when you were fooling around and under eating, right? So if you're going to attack a goal like fat loss or improving your metabolism, you should be ready to do it so that you can be really consistent, have the right tools and systems in place so that you can not waste time uh, in that phase. It's long enough as it is because it's more difficult now anyway, even when you're doing it right. there's a coax to this because it's the car accident analogy. There's a degree of repair required in pretty much every case. As every case where you're struggling or you're seeing more belly fat or you're more symptomatic, these are degrees of repair that require care, right? So solution, fat loss becomes possible when you reduce metabolic stress, coax your body out of this defensive state, and restore your body's responsiveness to a calorie deficit. Right now, it's not. So, well, the wording, let me correct that. Your body's always going to respond to a calorie deficit. So the correct wording of this should have been different. It is that you don't have to go so low to get a calorie deficit. So the calorie deficit is a calorie intake that is more appropriate for your body weight. That's what it really means. Why walking is essential for metabolic health. So I was just walking before this, and I was thinking because I had a couple conversations recently where people said that they just can't get into the walking. And I think honestly, this is a case where, said person or people potentially aren't really appreciating the value that daily walking will bring your life if you're consistent with it. So the important thing is to intellectually, your brain, to understand the actual facts about daily, walking and the impact it has on your physiology, especially your physiology now, right? So I wouldn't have been a big, huge walking proponent when I was coaching competitors back in the day. We did intervals twice a week, right? And that was the extent of the cardio, honestly. And I was a low cardio person, but I love the high intensity short stuff, and that was it. So I'm still not anti-hit. It's context, though. For this population, for this need, it is a no-no. So, in terms of walking, if you read the facts, it doesn't take really anything beyond that to just say, these are the facts. This is what it does. And then you say, okay, well, that's what it does. I'm gonna do it because I should do it. It's kind of like why you're going to the gym to work out, why you're going to the gym to work out for the impact on your body, right? Why are you choosing to eat the way you're eating? You don't, I mean, maybe you want to eat whatever you want. Like, wouldn't it be great to just do whatever and not care? That would be great, but you're not on purpose. So it's the same thing here. You go and you discipline yourself. You try to build a routine, a specific time where you can walk. And these are just normal walks. This isn't cardio, pound the pavement, burn calories. This is a gentle, leisurely, chill out walk, right? And once you fundamentally, like I said, accept the facts, then you just discipline yourself to do it. And the benefit to this is it's going to work. It does for everybody. At that point, once you've done the I don't feel like it stage of doing it anyways, the impact on your physiology will show up, and then you'll connect the dots to all the benefits you're experiencing from consistent walking. And then you'll be more motivated to walk because you'll say, I walk because I get all this from walking. And then you'll like walking. So, anyways, lowers cortisol. That's right. We're looking back at the same issue. And cortisol is the stress hormone. So, we're just really looking at this all through the lens of metabolic stress, higher stress sensitivity in the over 40 metabolism. So, this is going to help improve insulin sensitivity. When we reverse engineer this backwards, this is also why we're seeing more belly fat gain and more distribution, more redistribution where you're holding fat. So, key for women in perimenopause, right? Activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the rest and digest component of your nervous system. So peace, relaxation. This is how you want to be before bed. This is also great for digestion. This is, if you are able to, for example, if you struggle with that, 10-minute walk after meals can really help digestion, for example. Enhances blood flow. So you have reduced inflammation, supports metabolic and brain health, regulates your natural sleep-wake cycle, so your circadian rhythm, boosts serotonin levels. That's your feel-good neurotransmitter. Walking does so much. So it's not something that you're looking at through, hey, walking equals fat loss. No, walking equals creating and supporting the environment that allows and promotes and encourages fat loss, or let's say doesn't resist fat loss. That's what it does. You got to see it through a total big picture, holistic, full body type of lens. Strength training. We did a good one on this on Tuesday, right? So muscle preservation or gain. This is obviously going to support fat loss because think about it. We just mentioned about the little bits of lean body mass loss that people typically lose with their weight loss. That's why quality of weight loss matters so, so much, and why using progressive overload and actually tracking your workouts when you're trying to lose fat is critical. Because if you can see that I am not losing any strength while I'm losing fat, wait, I'm losing fat then. I'm not losing any muscle. If you're a lot weaker at the end of your at the end of your journey of weight loss, you lost muscle, period. Right? So I'm speaking more in that sense to a trained person. If somebody wasn't working out right now, that kind of changes the whole equation, right? Or if they're more in the beginner stage, there's so much progress you can make from a strength standpoint that has nothing to do with muscle. It has a lot to do with neurological adaptations and just your body learning to coordinate muscular contractions, right? So it's different. So preserving muscle is critical. We can't afford to lose any right now. Everybody needs more. Insulin sensitivity, it improves insulin sensitivity. So training, so your muscles is the biggest tank, the biggest storage tank you have for sugar, for glucose. Um, this helps your body use carbohydrates more efficiently. And ultimately, you low carbohydrate approaches suck for muscle building. You need glycogen. You need muscles that are slammed full of glycogen, better cross-sectional area, better biomechanics. This is one of the things creatine does. It brings all the fluid into your muscles, stretches them, and that's a total anabolic process that turns on protein synthesis, turns off protein breakdown, so on and so forth. Obviously, we know strength training supports bone health, bone density, joint health, connective tissues, even tendons. So, activities of daily living, right? So, hopefully, I don't have to convince anyone why you need to be strong. I'm so happy with my girls in Look Like You Train. I've seen PR after PR. They're strong. You can get really strong at any point in your life. I think of Claudia right now in Look Like You Train. She's like 70 now, and she's still hitting PRs. It's crazy, right? So, um, anyways, cortisol management. Unlike long duration, high intensity cardio, strength training, especially when you're looking at it through the lens of the long rest intervals, right? Activation, relaxation response, sympathetic, parasympathetic. This is not going to elevate cortisol or even deplete glycogen or spend calories beyond what you will naturally recover from at that point. And if you're getting stronger, like I said, you're not losing muscle. Progressive overload ensures your metabolism stays resilient. So biofeedback red flags. This is part of the get to know yourself, pay attention to yourself, connect with yourself because this is what's going to indicate whether you are in a responsive place for fat loss or if, look out, breaks need a service call. So think about when you are menstruating and you go through your phases and the hormones are all fluctuating. What happens? Symptoms, right? Experience changes in how you're feeling and hunger and cravings and mood and all this kind of stuff. So hormones are going adjustments in hormones, instability in hormones is going to show up in how you feel really quickly, right? And that's going to indicate that things are amuck a little bit, starting to get a little bit pissy inside. And that's feedback that's super valuable because it's going to indicate how stressed your body is because that's the volume at the top. And calorie deficit at this point is a major stressor, more stressful than it would be before, deeper, longer, more, both are more stressful. So this is going to tell you from a proactive standpoint, if you were in process, that a diet break is going to be needed at some point. Your body's starting to not respond favorably to this calorie deficit or whatever, let's just say the whole environment that you're in right now, right? Metabolism is starting, which is your stress barometer, is starting to send signals. This is also something that you can look at right now to determine if you should even be considering fat loss or if you should be trying to fix this first, which is really what most people need to do first. So we have clients track this, a weekly tracker they submit to us. We track how much sleep a person's getting, if they have a trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, what their morning energy is like, if they, from like good to please give me caffeine. Perceived stress levels, um, digestion, bowels, cravings, hunger, stability, and energy. These are all things that we're talking. I'm pretty much, it's right here. I wasn't even looking at my screen. I'm looking at my chart in my head. So poor sleep, disruptions from elevated cortisol, declining progesterone, those are connected. So this is kind of uh, it progesterone is relaxing your nervous system. So when you take progesterone, that's why it helps you sleep. It's helping to relax your nervous system, right? So lower estrogen, this is going to affect your sleep cycles. So this is going to happen from a perimenopausal state at different phases. In the beginning, you're having this sleep change from a reduced relaxation of your nervous system. So the system's a little bit just too wound up to stay rested all night. And then later, as you're approaching menopause, estrogen starts to come down as well. And this is going to affect your duration and things like REM and deep sleep. And then you have, of course, the temperature issues with hot flashes and whatnot. So that's biofeedback, right? Fluctuating hunger and craving. So instability is the issue. What your body likes is metabolic stability. That means everything's even keel. No surprises, right? So signs of low calorie intake. Um, uh, these are potentially signs of a calorie intake too low for too long. Blood sugar fluctuations. This could be from, poor meal timing, having no regularity to when you're eating in the daytime. Meal timing makes a difference for a bunch of different reasons well, really two main reasons that I didn't even put in here. And cortisol-driven appetite increases. Digestive issues. These is a red flag. Like I said, digestion is a window into how uh, much chronic stress your physiology is under, how unbalanced that seesaw is. So you have reduced parasympathetic activation, leads to bloating, constipation, and poor nutrient absorption. That's the other component. You don't even absorb nutrients as well in that state either. The whole system's impaired. It's malfunctioning. Unstable energy, so you can have like energy crashes in the afternoon. This is obviously going to signal poor blood sugar regulation. That's the crash. Elevated cortisol, inefficient energy production. Everything is connected. It all comes back to metabolic stress. Slow recovery, muscle soreness. So too much muscle soreness, really. Um, Slow recovery is a sign of nervous system strain. So that's just the command center is just kind of uh, wound up too much, and your recovery process for going through the whole post-workout recovery process is just too slow. So this is someone who is just too sore for too long, right? They're always getting sore from the workouts. I mean, like we talked about Tuesday, this could be just really bad programming, not enough rest, too much reps, too much lengthened based movements. There's lots of things that can make you sore, but it's more you have a default, a baseline for how sore you get based on how you train, and then it's now more and it's longer. That's really it's change. The biofeedback. We have a weekly check-in, and what I'm looking for is the trend. I'm watching for changes, right? I got a baseline, and every week I'm looking to see if anything's changing, and it makes me aware of when that I have a decision to make and a move to make with a client, because it's happening, right? So we're going to cut it off. And low libido. So oftentimes it's going to be there anyways because it shows up actually when someone's coming in even without these other issues. So stress will obviously give testosterone a crunch as well. Um, it's survival over reproduction at that point, which makes sense. What doesn't work? All this stuff. Large calorie cuts, long calorie deficits, cardio, ignoring how stress impacts your metabolism and behavior. Really, that one, ignoring how stress impacts your metabolism and your behavior. It's harder to be consistent, and the climb is more vertical when you are not considering the need to have self-soothing things in your life that allow you to close the loops, right? Walking is great for this as well. And I will say, walking just from the rhythmic movement of it, it's going to do what it does anyways. But from the brain standpoint, it's really awesome to be tech free sometimes as well, because you just let your mind go where your mind goes, right? And you're just spending time with yourself. And you need that, and it makes a difference. I used to always be a person who podcasted and just consumed, right, learning and as much as possible. And I do that a lot in the morning, not nearly as much as I used to. And in my evening, I never do because it's just me going through my stuff. Whatever I think about, and it's better. So high intensity workouts for all the reasons we've just talked about, hit boot camp workouts, really calorie burning classes, calorie burning exercise is not helpful right now. Not ever, right now. Metabolic workouts, cardio with weights, really short rest intervals, this stuff doesn't help. This is stressing an already stressed system and missing the point of what the solution is, which is reducing this whole thing and winding down the defensive state that your body's in. Intermittent fasting, I might as well mention this. Don't do this. This doesn't help. I don't care who says it. I don't care what menopausal person thinks this is a good idea. It's not. And if we think about what we're understanding as the common denominator here, not eating requires cortisol to provide blood sugar in the absence of that coming in from your diet. When we're trying to reduce this, so this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. If a person was trying to manage, and I'm talking I'm not saying that it has no place in this season of life for a specific person in this season of life, but for the one who's trying to accomplish what we're generally trying to accomplish here, which is what physique changes, fat loss, metabolism improvements, so on and so forth, moving in the right direction from that standpoint. Everyone here is probably of the mindset of a workout person, I'd hope. So it's not helpful for that whatsoever. And very low carb diets for the exact same reason, um, increases cortisol, worsens insulin resistance and energy levels in perimenopause. If you're on like ketogenic or very low carb diets for an extended period of time, it's the exposure to ketones over time that reduces insulin sensitivity. That's reducing the efficiency at which that your body processes carbohydrates. Why does it need to? You don't even These systems downregulate when they're not used. It's like, if I take HRT, testosterone, well, I don't produce as much testosterone, right? My body adapts to that. It's the exact same thing. So that doesn't work. What does work? The opposite. So obviously, progressive overload training, and I'm calling that specifically. I don't want to call it strength training. I'm not calling it resistance training. You'll see a lot of that. I watched a great expert in his field talk about menopause in women, and he mentioned resistance training in your exercise program, and I'm like, exactly, but that's not sufficient. That's great for the beginner, and it's the stepping stone place. Any resistance training is great. That's not really who I'm talking to typically. So it's progressive overload. There's an optimal way to prevent muscle loss, to hopefully regain muscle that you've lost from poor dieting methods in the past. There's a better way to do it than just calling it weight training. Daily gentle walking. This works. This works. I used to, when I put posts up about this all the time, and I'd say, you do it for 4 weeks, cut out all your hit and all this other calorie burning stuff, and walk every day for a month, and then come say thank you, because that's what happens. You'll feel it's noticeable. Sufficient protein obviously works. This is the menopausal macronutrient of choice. Your whole diet needs to be, you need to be protein conscious in your eating, whether you're on a plan, whether you're lifestyle eating, you need to be aware of it because it's what preventing muscle loss, also helping regulate your appetite, of course, has a higher thermic effect of food, is more satiating, so on and so forth. Adequate calories. Undereating is the kiss of death because most people at this point have undereaten. The message in the fitness field has always been less, 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 and more, more, more. Less food, more exercise. And there's no time. How many people have honestly spent dedicated time doing the opposite, repairing metabolism? You understand there's an adaptive component where it decreases. It does. It does in everybody. Who's undone it? Who's I said this adaptive component chases calories down, it chases calories back up. Have you chased it back up properly? Very few have done that, right? So adequate calories are super important. But what has to happen first for a lot of people is rebuilding this metabolism. This is the whole reverse dieting concept. We've always called it a metabolic improvement phase of eating because it's just more descriptive. But that's a systematic process of increasing the amount of calories that your body can eat and sustain, which means it's more efficient at processing food. That's better. That's where you're wanting to get to. You're wanting to get to a place where you're eating the appropriate amount of food for how heavy or light you are, or for what you weigh, whatever, heavy or light, but such bad words, but for what your current weight is, and then also for what your in shape weight is going to be. So adequate calories are super important, and they have to be packaged in a structured and sustainable for you way. Like you have to like, this is kind of the idea behind, our day two, which is we feel it's a really sustainable system, especially when you have the meal cards in place. You have to have some degree of structure, and that has to be packaged in foods the foods that you like to eat, right? And sleep. So you just got to take it seriously. Most people just kind of go to bed and hope they sleep. You need to prepare to go to sleep, right? Have good sleep hygiene, protect your sleep, really appreciate that. 30 minutes more of sleep is better than 30 minutes of cardio in the morning in all cases at this point, 100 to 0. So, stress, 7 hours of sleep, and effective stress management to regulate your nervous system and reduce cortisol. So the key takeaway is, again, reduce metabolic stress. This is what's going to return your body to be more responsive because it's not so defensive. When these things change, for the negative, they can seem kind of sudden, right? All of a sudden, what's happening? And it's reactive. And that's kind of the word. It's reactivity. It's like just low, short wick. And the healing, it's a car accident. It's the perfect analogy. It's a car accident. The car repair is there's so many steps to that. There's so much time, there's an exponentially longer amount of time compared to the impact of the accident, right? So metabolic stability is actually the foundation for sustainable fat loss and maintainable fat loss. And what that means is that you have one, good metabolic resilience, which means you're not going to adapt so fast to the deficit. You have stability in your weight and an appropriate calorie intake. These biofeedback, these all are decent. You're sleeping better. You have more stable energy. You have stable hunger. Cravings are kind of, cravings are a part of life, right? But they're not like these. So there's an improvement here. Digestion improves. Um, recovery's better. Progressive overload is better in the gym. Energy's better in the gym. Everything is better in the gym. Um, I can't say necessarily that the libido will become high though. So, there's a whole other conversation here that I didn't even get into because, it is HRT. And I kind of see it this way. I know a lot about HRT, but I'm not, for example, say, a Mary Claire for HRT. And, most people in menopause area, that's the big kind of menopausal doctor in the online space. But she's also not an expert in weight training, right? Or nutrition, even though she wrote a nutrition book. But my point is, so I don't talk about that, but that's something that's going to be a consideration. I'm super pro HRT, and but understand that just getting on HRT doesn't solve this issue. It makes you feel better and allows you to not have the obstacles of just not feeling good in the way of performing and being consistent, right? So, not a fat loss miracle, that's for sure. So, foundations. So rebuild metabolic resilience. This is basically rebuilding your ability to slow down the adaptation to the fat loss process. Eat enough calories and strength train to maintain, build muscle. Avoid the constant calorie cutting. You got to spend time at maintenance calories to create a body that's less defensive. The longer you have been in a lower calorie state, honestly, the longer you need to be in a higher calorie state. And the climb is not the healing. The time at the right intake is the healing. The only reason the climb, we haven't even talked about that, and I won't. Um, you really are trying to raise your calories to an appropriate intake as fast as possible, but as slow as necessary, not to gain unnecessary body fat, because you're obviously maintaining here. If you went to here, of course you're going to gain fat. You're used to this, This is what your body's processing, right? That's what it's got, tools for. So that's got to be kind of coaxed. It's kind of a sensitive process for a lot of females because it's uncharted territory too, right? Support your nervous system. This is again appreciating the impacts stress has on the functionality of all these systems you need to be functioning nicely to produce good fat loss, good muscle retention, good quality weight loss. You got to track your biofeedback. You have to connect because this is going to give you clues, right? Well, when, you know, you'll know I shouldn't be doing this right now. These are all the signs. Like it's obvious. That's why they're red flags. So monitor sleep, energy, hunger, cravings, digestion, recovery to know when your body is ready for fat loss. When, if you're in fat loss, you need a break from fat loss to eat more food, so on and so forth, and optimize body function, right? It becomes easier when your body is functioning optimally, not by pushing harder when it's not. For example, if somebody says to me that they're not hungry and they're in what theoretically should be a calorie deficit, that's not normal. I have low hunger. By these calories, this is a calorie deficit. It's a good 30%. You should experience some degree of hunger, right? Should be nothing. No, my hunger is like a one. Well, that's not biologically normal. Like that's not what you'd expect the body's response to be if it was operating the way it's designed. It's going to get you to eat, right? Homeostasis, equilibrium. Those hunger hormones should be upregulating there. They're not. That's not a system that's functioning right. That's a red flag. That's not something to ignore. So that's just one of the examples of things to pay attention to. Um, this is an issue, right? The mindset that has to go into this process, it's a completely different one. So you have to unlearn old approaches. It's really hard to learn new things or even accept new things unless you just concretely accept that this, even though it might have worked for me in the past, is just not the right game. It's not the right lane for me right now or anymore, right? So, and there's a struggle because there's a continuous drawback to methods that worked in the past when you were younger, and whether that be low carbs or low calories or lots of exercise or just kind of working it off, it worked, right? And in however you define success, it worked for you. So that's psychology of success. There's an unconscious pull, right, to be drawn right back to what took you to the first time. So a person who lost 50 pounds going keto and gained back 70, they're still going to want to try that keto again. I did lose 50 pounds doing it after all. Yeah, but that wasn't your goal. Your goal was to keep the 50 pounds off for life, right? Your goal is not to um, get married, it's to stay married. Completely different mindset when you're looking at permanent fat loss. So trusting new methods. Success honestly requires you unlearning these. It's just part of your old you. It's a different chapter of life. And it should make sense. You're the one experiencing the hormone changes. You're the one in your own body that knows things has changed, right? So it should logically make sense that perhaps there's a different path that I need to take here. Strength training, hard strength training, daily walking, prioritizing recovery, paying attention to biofeedback, and reducing metabolic stress. Um, think of this process as a marriage, like I just said, not a wedding date. The goal isn't just to get there, it's to stay there. Staying lean and healthy long term is only possible when you rebuild your metabolism so your body works with you, not against you. So if you were to lose weight, and you were to grind through low calories and lost weight, like, can't you, can you see how uphill the battle would be to keep that weight off forever? You have this pathetic ember of a metabolism when it should be this big ball of fire, right? It's probably never going to be a big ball of fire, but you know what I'm saying? There should be some flames here. It's the thermostat, and there used to be a fire here. It's just weak, pathetic metabolism. It's just uphill. It's not helpful for maintaining the muscle mass that you need, right? That we all need it really, not just women. It's not helpful for staying lean. Um, and it's not even helpful for just living your life on a reasonable amount of food. So this is our approach, which is summing this all up. Rebuild your metabolism. It's probably the first step for most people. So when we work with like a one-on-one client, the first thing we do is what I call a deficit test. And a deficit test is basically to put a client in what should be mathematically a calorie deficit for where they are. And then you just have the accountability in place and you nail the consistency for 2 to 4 weeks. And that will tell you, is it a deficit for you? Yeah, you have to be consistent to test that. You need a static calorie intake. This is why you need a plan, right? This is why you need a system and a structure and a sustainable plan. You need a constant calorie intake in this season because how else do you test anything? You're just guessing. How do you adjust what's not there to adjust from? So we will deficit test that. That person can either lose weight, stay the same, or gain weight on those calories, right? There's three possible outcomes. The only really good one is a little bit of weight loss. That's obviously not a surplus. It's obviously at least some degree of calorie deficit. Maintenance across the board, well, that's a pretty suppressed metabolism. Weight gain, bad news. Bad news. Wow, this calorie deficit is actually calorie surplus for you. That's bad news. That's a significant car crash. So most people are going to have most people, honestly, most women have to raise that level of calorie intake because the normal calorie deficit intake is not a calorie deficit, which means, yes, you can push lower. There's a calorie deficit available to everybody if you go low enough. But how sustainable is it? It's reinforcing why we're in a low position state anyway. It's more stressful to the body, and there's less and less likelihood of maintaining on the other side because you have no metabolic strength left. And when I say no, I don't mean literally. It's just less. Strength training focus. Our strength training program, which is Look Like You Train, um, focuses on progressive overload. I've forced these girls to progressively overload, and I tricked them into it as well. Because, for example, I started at 8 reps, and there's psychology to this. I started at 8 reps at work sets, and by the end of this program, we were down to 5, which means you're going up in weight anyway because the reps are going down. So you logically are going to think I should be going heavier. So it's it works. You're going to be stronger anyways through that type of programming, but there's a little gaming of getting them to go up in weights as well. Daily walking, like I said, you need to appreciate if you're not a walker, then just discipline yourself to do it until you can appreciate why you're doing it, because you will appreciate why you're doing it. And the more symptomatic you are, if the more beneficial it is. Reducing metabolic stress. That's really the nature of the whole game. Unlike traditional approaches that push harder, we focus on reducing metabolic stress so your body works with you, not against you. You know, the cardio thing, I can't remember if I close that slide with this, but the other reason I say to take fat loss and this process of change seriously is because cardio is important. There's a cardiovascular component that's we all need to have as we get older too. But if you're doing that in a calorie deficit, in an energy storage, in a stressed metabolic state, it's not helpful. It's more stressful. It's not taking you where you think it's taking you. I guarantee you. So you need to be when you're working on a cardio and you want to work on your heart health, then put yourself in an environment where that's optimized. That's not now because you would have to be eating maintenance calories then and not having that cardio create a larger calorie sink for you that you're not trying to have right now anyway. So it's season specific, right? Take care of this stuff, put an end to it so you can get on with maintaining, which is harder anyways, and focusing on all these other things that we talk about anyways, with which cardio, so on and so forth. Right. So that's my general message around what about cardio. Final thoughts. Fat loss over 40 isn't about pushing harder. It's about creating the right environment for your body to respond, which requires a double dose of recovery. It does. That's the biggest difference maker component there. And in some cases, it's going to be whatever your active stress management techniques are, baths, books, music, naps, friends, pets, sex, cuddles, whatever it is, right? Um, what you know what it is. You have to do it on purpose, intentionally. It's a connect with self process for fat loss. It's not a grind like it would have been before. So this is about creating a relaxed environment where your body is not under threat, not in an energy conservation type of environment, and just systems are working the way they're supposed to work because there's no pressure on them. Um, The body you want and want to maintain is not going to come from cardio classes, low carbs, fasting, burning. It's just not going to come. No one who looks the way you want to look gets there that way. Nobody, no one. Um, Success leaves clues, and the people who have those results didn't do that, especially not as a lifestyle. None of those are lifestyle approaches whatsoever. They're all finish line focused approaches, which means how are you going to maintain? You have to consider that your whole point is the marriage component of this, marrying your in shape self, not just kind of meeting her. Sustainable approach, reduce metabolic stress. I like saying that. I'm going to say it a lot. Build muscle and support your metabolism so fat loss becomes not only possible, but sustainable. It's not impossible to lose fat now. I got some people coming in 1 hour later. Uh, working with your body, not against it. So fat loss will no longer feel as much of an uphill. I didn't say not an uphill. I didn't say easy. It's never easy. You know why? Because you don't like the nutrition component. The reason why like the day two thing that we did with Amy did is so helpful and so valuable in action is because that's the part that ties it all together. Everyone likes working out. Well, most people like working out. People I like to talk to like working out, right? That's the whole look like you train kind of moniker. So, but you got to only show up for yourself 3, 4 times a week. Food is way more complicated. It's 5 times a day. It's emotional. It's social. It's pattern based. It's there's so much. It's saboteur based. People that sabotage you, lack of support. There's way more to it. So having an appreciation for the value in sustainable structure is really, really important because you're not going to wing it with your diet. You're not going to eat healthy and get there at this point. Calorie deficits are more stressful, so you have to be mindful of how much of a calorie deficit you're in, how long you're in one, so on and so forth. So this is a picture from Flex Friday. So every Friday and Look Like You Train. Um, we have a Flex Friday group, and then this collage is a grab of the photos from the prior week of some of our girls in there. So everyone nice and getting strong. So call to action. So I say this is ready to break free from dieting. This is the last day, our day three. So I'm gonna promote and mention obviously our training group, Look Like You Train, which is really our total group coaching platform right now. So I know I have a lot of you in here already, but this is a community of over 500 women like you tackling the same challenges and solving them together with Amy's and my coaching and support. So the hub is the training program, right? So this is why we open this 4 times a year, March, June, September, and December. So we are just finishing week 12 right now. Tomorrow's literally the last workout. And next week is a buffer week. So it's kind of a deload, rest, recovery week. And then we start the new round of programming, which is going to have a bit of a bicep tricep emphasis um, the week after. So like March 3rd week. So I can confidently say that this is probably the best $2.50 a day that you would find on the internet. It's not just the training component. It's kind of this is everything. These 3 days kind of encompass our overall philosophy um, to help women in this age bracket and how we coach both in the group and in one-on-one. The difference between the group and one-on-one is obviously in one-on-one there's things that you just can't do in a group setting, right? There's a different level of accountability. There's a different type of conversation. There's face-to-face stuff. It's one-on-one, right? It's your problems. It's your customized help. But the group has everything else. That's why our one-on-ones are all in there for the training, for the community. And I would say, I mean, and anyone of my Look Like You Train girls that are in here now, we have a badass community. We've had Look Like You Train for 5 years now. We've got OGs in there still. It is a really, really fantastic. It's a community. So we just kind of open it to new people every 3 months. So if you are interested in looking at that, I don't know how else to give you this. So you're going to have to screenshot this link and then go type it in and take a look. Um, and we have our page for that. So that's it. Hope you guys learned a lot about this one. I felt really smooth and happy and comfortable speaking through this one because I've talked about this so much, it's not even funny. When I get client applications, one-on-one applications, let me just take this share screen off. If there's any questions, I'll come to the thing right now. But I'm always actually talking about this because I do a Loom video response to my applications, and I go line by line, and I'm just always addressing these types of issues because it's the commonality issue. So it's very second nature to me to discuss right now. So let me see. Any questions? And let me see if I can get over here and look. That was great. I hope you guys enjoy. Oh, I'm at the same time. Look at that, 70 minutes. Well, I felt I've rolled through that one. I was steamrolling that. Love these sessions. Thank you. Okay, I loved it too. Thanks for being here. Yeah, so you would email Chris. Can you give me the email to email Amy for a one-on-one plan? So you could email me, because I'm the one who'll distribute that. So it's Eric, ERIK at leanbodiesconsulting.com. So that's us just building out the actual template. So in Look Like You Train, you get access to all those custom templates that I'm sure Amy talked about, that are built for every 5 or 10 pounds there. In this one-on-one kind of template build, we just customize that to you. Maybe we're eating more at dinner. Maybe there's a different distribution of calories. The templates are kind of even over the meals, right? So it's just custom. So yeah, Eric at leanbodiesconsulting.com. Illinois, Mississippi. What is your take on BCAAs? So waste of money. There's no need. So here's the thing. I never was a believer in BCAAs anyways, when people were talking about BCAAs. And the reason for this is because one, let's say you're taking whey protein, this is 25 to 30% branched chain amino acids as it is. So think of what you're getting just from 25 grams of whey protein, right? It's like a quarter to a third of that is BCAAs. Then, of all the protein you eat, only 25% of it actually makes it through digestion. Of that, 75% of it is BCAAs. Your body already has a high preference for branched chain amino acids because you have a pool, right? It's a very, very uh, highly active combination of amino acids in terms of what they do in your body. But think about the preference you already have, what you're getting from your diet already, especially if you're supplementing whey protein. What is another 5 or 10 grams of this going to do for you? Zero. Absolutely nothing. So the context for use for this might be somebody thinking pre-workout or during workout. In that case, I would say you would use EAAs, which is essential amino acids, which is the full 8 spectrum and not just the 3 branching amino acids. That would be something that would make a lot more sense. Do you recommend creatine daily or training aid? Yeah, every day. Every day. Whether you train or not, you should be taking creatine. Whether you work out or not, honestly, whether your parents work out or not, they should be taking creatine as well. There's just too much research and things known, and there's still so much more emerging because the more they find out, the more they want to study it more in different areas to see what else it can do from a health standpoint. And it does a lot, right? So you take it every day. I always say take it after your workout on a training day and any time of day that you're not training. That is actually secondary to just taking it any time of day, every day, as long as you take it. 5 grams every day, right? Amy got me there. 5 for the win. Cuddles built into our morning. Yeah. Seriously love this program so much. Thanks, Eric and Amy, for all you do. This group is top notch. Love the community, not only for training, but for friendship. It's the best. Could you show that link again? Yeah, okay. I can do that actually. Uh, I'll leave that up right there. Look at these muscles, eh? Look at that. Okay. There it is right there for you. Where do I get back to the chat? Um, so informative. Great. I appreciate that. I'm glad. How long of a daily walk do you recommend? I'm at 156 days, but wondering what length of time. I think 30 minutes. A 30-minute session is nice. Sometimes people can't even do that, like you can break it up. It's the cumulative time, honestly. I can make an argument for 3 10-minute walks, right? But the way I program it, the way we program it is we say a step count. I like to say, hey, you should probably walk, 7, 8,000 steps per day in terms of movement. But this is a dedicated, gentle, parasympathetic, leisurely walk. with the purpose clearly outlined for why we're doing it already. So I like 30 minutes. So 30 to 75, that's great. You can't do too much, honestly. It's so low stress and so low impact. Um, is it better to start with a one-on-one or can we start with look like you train? Great question. I think it's very situational, but look like you train is awesome because you get we have a lot of one-on-one clients that will ascend from look like you train, and I have one right now that's in the process of doing this. And I always say, we love it because you got such a head start. You're already training right. You're already probably got a lot of the habits and behaviors and kind of education coming your way, right? So it really depends on, obviously in a group format a DIY component, but we're there. One, the community is super helpful. Two, I live in there, right? So I don't miss anything. At least I don't think I miss anything. And Amy's in there too. We're in there. So if a person's willing to ask for help in there, no matter what it is, they're going to get help. So you would be the one to, I mean, you could always send me an email and we could talk about it. And it really depends on what you're struggling with. Let's say this, for example, there's a question on my questionnaire that says, do you struggle with self-sabotage and self-betrayal and being consistent? The answers range from no to all the way to, ugh, a lot. If the answer was, ugh, a lot, that person probably needs a little bit more help on execution and doing the work than just having the good work given to them, right? So case by case. But Look Like You Train is a great place to start, and I like saying it's a super affordable program for what's in there. Everything is in there. We just did this awesome. Amy did this. I didn't do it. Amy did this awesome 21-day challenge. It was all about it's personal development and really getting consistent and really kind of grinding in and rewiring, and it's all in there. We've been doing this for 20 years, right? So we have a lot of experience that's grown and accumulated, and we are doing all this kind of stuff ourselves. So it's not like we don't, I train the same way, Amy trains the same way, so we're all in the same kind of mental philosophy. This was my favorite session. Thanks, Carrie. Is the approach different if you're going through a stressful situation? Well, that is what this is. This is a stressful situation, right? That's kind of what metabolic stress. So whether it is an amount of stress accumulated in your body because of diet history, whether it's perimenopause or whether it's trauma, whether it's just what you're going through in your life right now, like death of a parent or this or that, everyone has stuff that is stressful. That's exactly what this is about, right? So yes, it doesn't change. This is the overreaching solution to that. This works 100% of the time. 100% of the time, this works. I love the one-on-one training for custom and accountability. Uh, Especially for me as I was eating in a deficit and gaining weight, red flag, I'm in repair and feeling amazing. Yeah, you're doing great, Christina. That's good. Nice for you to say that too. This has been so helpful. Thank you. Timing of taking creatine anytime you want. Anytime you want. I learn something every time good. Can men join? Yes. Yeah. So I have, I mean, I've just happened to coach women over the years, with Mike coming out of like Muscle Tech and working with Hydroxiga and then working with female competitors and Oxygen. This just been my whole path, my whole coaching career. And then Amy's kind of like my ideal client, right? So she's right there, perimenopause, likes to train, wants to look, she works out, so on and so forth. So, um, but I've coached men as well. I have a few men client. I've always clients on my roster. There's a couple guys in the group. They're pretty quiet, obviously, but they're in the group probably just more so because they know me, right? It's not so much that the marketing of the group attracted them. They know me as a person, as a coach or a trainer, and I think one of the guys just is likes to learn because he coaches a similar audience to me as well. So, but yeah, absolutely. The training, I do the training. If there's the question, I train. When I write these programs, I write the 3 and the 4 day. I'm still thinking of myself too, because I'm thinking optimal training. I'm thinking optimal training, optimal muscle building, optimal strength. Where you are really making a decision is the 4 and the 3 day. And if you are on the edge on recovery and you're more symptomatic, the 3 day makes a difference. I had one of our OGs mention that sometimes she feels bad not training more. And I said, then train 4. And what did she say? She said, I do better on 3. I recover better, so on. So even that extra day, it's a recovery based game. Thank you. I absolutely say it's been changing, adding those walks into my life. The down regulation of my overall system has been amazing. Cortisol belly gone, sleep returned, digestion improved, irritability reduced. So this is great to hear. And my next steps are adding back to the gym. Definitely would like to pursue look like you train. Yeah, awesome. That is freaking fantastic. That's the metabolic stability you're looking for, right? Those are good biofeedback indicators. And now that you have a baseline on them, you actually now can pay attention to when they change, right? If you happen to go into a fat loss phase, you can know when you are in a really responsive state or when to start really paying a little bit extra attention and to consider, eating more for a little while. And look like you train. I mean, at the very least, if you really liked my training talk on Tuesday and you don't want to put your own together, it's me putting it together. It's turnkey training, and my training is awesome. So you will get very strong. I can guarantee it. Okay, so I guess that's it. Yay. So I'm gonna say thanks everybody for being here and sticking with us. We hadn't done a 3 day thing like this before, so this type of kind of information and promo for Look Like You Train, but it's pretty cool. In the gym, in the kitchen, under the hood. So I hope all the 3 days were good for you guys. If you have any questions, if you need the link, if any of you didn't get the um, 3 Look Like You Train workouts from Tuesday because you didn't whatever grab the link, or I don't know. Hold on, I got something here. Then either email Amy or email me. Amy's at Amy at Lean Bodies Consulting. I'm obviously Eric at Lean Bodies Consulting, and then or DM me on LBC or my personal Facebook, and I'll get you the page for it. I'd like you to get it, at least you know, if you I'd like you to get it. I'd like you to have it because it's a good document, and it will at least allow you to see what 3 different uh setups look like that still fulfill all of the principles that I say are so important in designing a good program for yourself right now. So, of course, I'd love to see and look like you train and train under me and experience what we can do in our group, but we'll leave that for you to decide. So, any questions, you can shoot us an email. And like I said, if you don't have that document for those workouts, then contact me somehow. All right. Thank you. That's it. I'm out. Good night. Thanks for being here, everybody.